interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced.
No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. Never before, since Jamestown and Plymouth Rock, has our American civilization been in such danger as now. It is no exaggeration to say that all of us in the Americas would be living at the point of a gun.
The noise that you hear at the moment is the sound of the air raid sirens. I'm standing here just on the steps of St. Martin's in the Fields. A searchlight just burst into action off in the distance. One single beam sweeping the sky above me now.
The Navy Department deeply regrets to inform you that your son was killed in action while in the service of his country. The department extends to you its sincerest sympathy in your great loss.
Flash. London. Eisenhower's headquarters announces Allies land in France. Immediately afterwards, bulletin. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, June 6 AP. General Dwight D. Eisenhower's headquarters announced today that Allied troops began landing on the northern coast of France this morning, strongly supported by naval and air forces.
This landing is part of the concerted United Nations plan for the liberation of Europe.
The representative of the German High Command and of Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Force.
A few hours ago, Japan signed unconditional surrender to the Allies, just 6 years from the September weekend in which German aggression started the Second World War. Now, as General MacArthur said after the surrender ceremony, the entire world lies quietly at peace.
Today has been a wonderful, memorable day. I've been places I've never been. I've seen things I've never seen before. And I've had the privilege of being associated with a whole lot of good people that I might otherwise never have known. It's been a day I shall never forget. I have been honored more than my wildest expectations.
The World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. opened in 2004. That means that millions of veterans died before they could stand tall at their own monument and be honored for their service. Theirs was the greatest generation, and once the monument was built, many felt a great sense of urgency in bringing the veterans to see it.
The last World War I veteran passed away, Frank Buckles. He was 110 years old and he passed away in February. And I decided to do some research and see how many World War II veterans were still alive. And then at the time there was currently about 1.8 million American World War II veterans alive.
That was the first thought that hit my mind, is most World War II veterans weren't going to get to experience the memorial, because at that point they were either in the late 70s, early 80s. And I really wanted a way where I could take at least some local World War II veterans down to the memorial.
You really have to look at what that war meant to the entire world. I mean, they really did, in every sense of the word, save the world.
Hudson Valley Honor Flight, one of more than 100 hubs around the country, was founded in 2011 by a small group of young men and women who hadn't yet reached the age of 30. They've since established one of the most exciting nonprofits the Hudson Valley, or all of New York, has seen in quite some time.
We kind of feel the responsibility. Steve's a veteran himself. I come from a veteran family, and we always have the responsibility, we believe, to honor our veterans.
We just slowly would meet these World War II veterans, and after talking to them and finding out their stories and realizing that they all just had so much that they wanted to share, it was almost like they had years and years built in that they just couldn't get out, or didn't have the avenue to get out. They didn't have someone to knock on their door and say, hey, tell us your story. And we were finally there saying that to them.
I haven't met a World War II veteran who is boastful or who even really likes to talk about what they did. I mean, I see a hero, but they're so humble about what they did and all the things that they accomplished. And I think that's because they feel like, I just did what my duty was. I served my country because that's what I did. And I don't think they realize how incredible they are.
A lot of members of our board, a lot of our volunteers are veterans. I'm not a veteran. I've never worn a uniform or served my country in that respect. So I look at this, giving the veterans the opportunity to honor them and bring them to Washington, as a way to serve my country in a way that I can at this point in my life.
When we first started and we got our first flight off the ground, we waited a year for that next flight. And so, if we got an application in the month after our first flight, there were quite a few guys who didn't make it.
I always felt a connection with World War II veterans. My father was a World War II veteran. All my uncles were World War II veterans. I asked Steve if I could be of any help. I have a connection with ShopRite. I worked for ShopRite supermarkets for 40 years. And really my role has been to be the liaison between ShopRite, which is our major sponsor, and Honor Flight. And I'm very proud of that.
There are so many guys that unfortunately, they apply, they get excited. We had one guy come to our meet and greet, was so excited to go, and we got a phone call from his wife the next day that he died that next morning, and that breaks our heart.
To send them the message that they really are heroes. And they're actually uncomfortable when you say that. And they'll say to you, no, I'm not a hero. The heroes didn't come back.
My father was in World War I, and when World War II broke out, before you go any further, he says, you're not going anywhere until your number comes up. So forget about enlisting, because, he knew the horrors of war.
I entered the service in May of 1943. I did my basic training in Camp Shelby, Mississippi.
I was in the South Pacific and aboard a destroyer escort.
My ear is glued to the radio all the time for music and all that. And then FDR gets on the radio, and he's begging for nurses. All the nurses in where I was going to all had malaria. They had to be replaced. And they needed nurses so badly.
I was in the Marine Corps and was enlisted shortly after 1941.
I was at Fort Kamehameha in Hawaii, Oahu, Hawaii. I was in the artillery. My job was observation. As far as Pearl Harbor goes, we were right next to the harbor entrance. And the plane came right over the top of the barracks, Japanese plane. I looked right at the pilot, it was right there, it was like that. He was right there, you know. He turned his head and looked right at me. And we went in. But that's when it all started for me.
Rationing began in the Newburgh system on January 5th, 1942. Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 1941. As I look back now, I say to myself, how did the country mobilize so quickly?
And entered combat in January of 1945. And our division is probably noted for meeting the Russians at the Elbe River in May of 1945.
My job was laying a wire from a headquarters company up to the mortars and repairing it when it got knocked out, and the tanks and artillery and fire that were always cutting it out.
Most every household had somebody who was serving in the United States Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and so forth. There were very few people who objected to being put out. In other words, I can't get enough gas, I can't get enough this, I can't get enough that. I believe that in my 4 years of being clerk there, that there might have been 3 people of all the people that we served who really objected to rationing.
I think all America did that. You know, I was born during the Prohibition, and I grew up during the Depression, and then I survived World War II. And I think everybody that survives World War, everybody pitched in during the war.
After 90 days, I was shipped to Paris Island, went through boot camp, and from there sailed to Guam, and then from Guam, Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima, I was one of the lucky ones, minor injuries, came home.
My first landing was at Eniwetok. Eniwetok's the Marshalls, then it was the Gilbert Islands, then Guadalcanal, Tarawa.
Well, I got on the Intrepid, and we got out into the Pacific after the shakedown and all. And it was in Pearl.
It was at Iwo Jima, Marshalls, Gilbert's, and Mediterranean, all through the area.
And they said to me, we're going to go to Coral Sea. I says, oh boy. I says, that's too much for me. But anyway, they shot the aft end out of it after about a week there, the kamikazes and all. Come back into Pearl, and I came back to the Atlantic side, and I got back into the amphibs.
We didn't get the news like you got today. Our biggest news was when we went to the movies and saw the newsreels, and you would listen to the radio, and it was very highly censored. I remembered getting letters from my cousins who were in service, and there would be barely any pages left. It would be so censored. You could hardly make sense out of what they were writing.
I was a young kid. When you saw somebody get shot, somebody get wounded, somebody get killed, you stop for a minute and you think, there but for the grace of God go I.
We were all in it together. Except there's a lot of guys never came home with us. And that's the guys we feel sorry for. and their families. They lost their lives. And even though I got a plumbing problem and I walk footing, I'm here. I'm still breathing. What can I tell you?
One of the kids I knew growing up, he went into the Marines also. The first island invasion he was on, he was wounded and was hospitalized for a couple of months and went back to his outfit. The second invasion, he was wounded again and was in the hospital for about 5 or 6 months and went back to his outfit. Third invasion, he was killed. That's how tough things were.
Welcome. I'm Marty Purdy, the Veteran Coordinator. How are you today? Good. And your name? Edward. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to have you go register with CCW. It's going to help you register. How are you and your guardian?
So I coordinate the meet and greet for the most part and have all of our different committee members who are the medical or the safety committee and the transportation and all. They all are able to reach these veterans and their families and finalize all the arrangements at this a couple weeks before.
The World War II veterans started coming in, and what really hit me was, quite honestly, I seen my dad 100 times. My dad passed away many years ago, and they're all the same age.
I'm also the guardian coordinator, so I speak with guardians and make sure that they're all set, and if they have any questions, I also talk to family members as well as the veteran coordinator, Marty Purdy.
I met the World War II veterans and realized that they are a breed all of their own. They're just a unique kind of soldier that made sacrifices that I can't even comprehend. And in meeting these gentlemen and hearing their stories, I've learned what wonderful people they still are today. They're so interested in life. They are truly gentlemen that treat one another and everyone with respect. And they're just happy to be alive and don't feel that they've done anything special when in reality they really have done a lot.
World War II veterans would just start talking to each other as if they've known each other forever, and they didn't. They just knew each other for maybe a couple of hours. But they just picked up on stories, and they didn't talk about the bad stuff. They talked about all of the fun times they had during the war. Even though they were in the middle of a battlefield, they talked about funny stuff, and they just bonded. It really happened in the meet and greet first.
Some of them are just have buried those feelings for so long that I think they're afraid of the emotional part of it. Once they get past that and once they open up, there comes a sense of pride that you can't read about in a textbook. And I think that they really need that, and they've been waiting for that closure.
Even though I've never met them before, it was feeling a comradeship. It was like, I talked to them with ease. Yeah. I talked to them with ease, with no problem. They weren't looking the ribbons you had, the medal you had, or where you served. It's just one of them.
Get ready for an amazing day. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's fun, but it's very serious stuff. You're here for the veterans to make it their best day ever, and we're going to show you how to do it.
We have a lot of water, we have a lot of drinks, we have a lot of food. Thanks to Hudson News at the airport itself, we get there and shop right ahead of time. There's plenty of food along the way. Hudson News provides us with snacks and water.
Just understand that we're going down there with a tremendous amount of history, tremendous amount of personal history. And these folks will talk just be very polite and don't be too pushy. And start out with some basic questions. What branch of the service were you in? Where did you serve? Where did you go? What did you do? And they'll respond to that.
What you're going to see is something that's going to amaze you. You're actually going to see a transformation take place. And the biggest thing that they're going to take away from this day is their connections with the other veterans and the camaraderie that actually is formed. And you're going to see that 90-year-old veteran actually transported back to when he was 17, 18, 19 years old.
But most of all, I feel more honored for this guy, my son. He's always there for me.
I wish I could trade places and let him go.
Yeah. Don't say that.
Oh, these are happy tears.
You know how much he sacrificed. At 18, when you think how young they were as young men to be going. So it means a lot that the country is acknowledging them and paying tribute to my dad and all the other World War II veterans.
Well, they come up and they surprised me. I didn't know they were coming, and I'm so proud of them. And here my girls.
Wheels up. We're rolling out, so you guys you guys all have a great day. You all heroes. Today is your day. Take it all in. Remember all the sacrifice you made, your friends made, and today, go down to your memorial. Enjoy it. Have a great day, guys.
Really, it was the buses pulling up in front of Stewart that grabbed me, because from that moment forward, I knew that I wanted to be involved with the organization. So we continued to volunteer, and they're just so special. So it was a great feeling for me.
They're shocked. Like it's just even when you started ShopRite, the people that are there supporting them, the bands, the just regular people, and they get on the bus and they're escorted by police departments, fire departments, the motorcycles. They're like, oh, look at this, we're movie stars.
To our World War II veterans, let me say this. You defined peace and gave hope to the world with these 4 words. The Americans are coming. Today, because each of you, each and every one of you, all of Europe is free, all the Pacific is free, and thank God, America is free. Let's have a big round of applause for our 85 World War II veterans.
We are all proud and motivated and excited, proud to be a part of this, and yet we are all so very humbled. You are our heroes. We appreciate your sacrifice and what you accomplished, and this is your day of honor. I was told on one of the earlier flights, a gentleman said on the way into the airport, he said, this is like the welcome home that I never received. And it never dawns on most Americans that a lot of World War II veterans did not come home to a full welcome home.
Everyone in this airport is honored to be in your presence. Young men and women who about 70 years ago answered the call of duty and honor. You went to places you could not pronounce, and you fought a determined enemy who you did not know. All of you are warriors. We in this room have not forgotten your sacrifice and are today still, and always will be, grateful for you to making it possible for us to live in a free nation. Veterans, all of your sacrifices and heroism are an inspiration for our generation and for the next generations to fight, always fight any threat and always defend the America you provided for us. We have a great day in store for you. Let's have some fun. If you need anything today, anything at all, this is your day. We're here for you. For God and country, thank you. God bless America. God bless freedom. And God bless the World War II veterans of Hudson Valley.
What are you going to put on here? So where should I sit?
At the field now showing winds out of the south at 13 miles an hour with good visibility. An overcast sky, temperature right now 75 degrees. Thanks again for joining us today. It's been an honor to bring you down to the nation's capital. At this time, we'd like to ask our flight attendants to prepare the cabin for arrival.
Have a great time all by yourselves there. Go on. Soak it all in.
That guy's good.
My name is Kat.
For many of the World War II veterans, this is the largest crowd they've been a part of in many years. They are amazed that their communities and communities far away from home have turned out to honor them. Regardless of where they go that day, the veterans are treated with respect and reverence by those they encounter.
I stood and watched a woman who came up dressed in a business suit, pulling a rolling bag behind her. And she stood there applauding with tears running down her face. And I eventually sidled over to her and said, "Do you know someone here?" And she just shook her head. She couldn't even talk.
It was one of the most rewarding, amazing events. Just to be with these gentlemen and witness their heartfelt moments. The guy I was with, his name is Yui, he's my boyfriend now. Just watching it through his eyes and watching people come up and thank them. And the tears, it was amazing.
Nobody expected it, you know. And it was just another beautiful surprise for the day.
It's overwhelming, and it almost brings tears to my eyes to be recognized. I never expected it.
I do feel honored, and I have two brothers here that served in the Navy, so I'm doubly honored. And I knew ahead of time what the experience would be for them, but for me, it's been emotional, so I can't even imagine how it's been for them.
When you saw this, you felt differently about the war? You felt relieved?
Well, that was about May 2nd or something like that.
Right. So, but this was an indication to you that your job was pretty much done. That's pretty cool stuff.
We're sitting here because my dad fought in Okinawa, and we laid a flag there for him. And then we're going to go to the wall for your buddy and put a flag there for him.
Unimaginable, and I just cannot imagine the logistics that go into this whole affair is absolutely unbelievable.
They feel like rock stars because they're driven around DC in a bus which doesn't stop for traffic lights. We treat them like rock stars, and they should be treated like rock stars.
You want to go up and thank people sometimes, but you don't know how. There's no better way the whole Washington, the whole Hudson Valley is thanking them. The way you saw people come out this morning, and when you got to the airport, and when you got to this airport, and just people coming up and wanting to talk to these guys. You just want to kind of fade in the background and just, this should happen every day for these guys, not just once in a lifetime. And like I said, I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, they showed their appreciation, and all that, It was very, very heartwarming, very heartwarming.
And you come on this thing, and, I met Frank 2 weeks ago. I never knew who he was. Now we're friends, I wish I had met him 20 years ago.
We owe a debt of gratitude and a round of applause to all of these volunteers that have given so much of their time, effort, and energy to make this day possible. So let's really give it.
I advise any veteran that is able to go to do so. It's quite an experience. My father was in the Marine Corps, fought on Iwo Jima, Saipan, and Tinian. He passed away a year ago at 88, but I had taken him to these monuments before, so this is my second time, but the first time with the honor flight. And it's a wonderful experience what they do for these vets, and I know we're losing them at an astronomical rate, and please get a hold of the honor flight and go. It was quite an experience today to see other honor flights from Minnesota, Florida. Wonderful experience. They were treated like heroes and kings, which they truly are.
From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean.
club that sang for you upstairs there before we got on the plane was the West Point Alumni Glee Club. In that Glee Club were several 3, 2, and 1-star generals. So you had some pretty good turnout for you tonight. Thank you.
At the end of the flight, they gave us a manila envelope of letters, and I had 4 of them from children. Only one put a return address on it, her school. So I wrote to her to thank her, to let her know how special that was.
Airmen, Marines, soldiers, sailors, ghosties, it's mail call, mail call. Pay attention when you hear your name, raise your hand.
When we got on the plane coming back, all of a sudden the lights went on, the lights went off, and everybody got, what's going on, you know? And then these 3 girls come out and said, mail call, mail call, mail call. And everybody, they had big bags with your name on it, and these were cards and gifts that they had gotten.
The mail call mimics when the men were in the service and received mail from back home. Some of the notes that are written to these men are from grandchildren saying how proud they are of their grandfather.
One of the most memorable moments of mail call for me was he opened up a letter and he started reading it and he didn't understand who it was even from. It was a copy of a letter his mother sent him in 1943. It blew us all away. At first he didn't realize it. He even said, who's this from? What is this? And it was really an amazing moment when he realized who the letter was from. And then he read it a second time and we were all just sitting around with tears in our eyes.
I mean, besides the Boy Scouts playing music and all of the in-between activities, the mail call was very impressive.
Carl Carlson, Frederick Jimmy Caston, Joseph Serto, Lenny Chaipetz, Jack Cohen, Jack Collins, Bill Confalone, Edward Conroy, Leo Dalton, Jerry DeVissa, Fred Earl, Vincent Feely, Cliff Ferguson, Joseph Sam Forte, Al Frank, Bart Gaudioso, Herb Geller, Paul Jacoby.
Just reading a letter from my son who's in here, and brings tears to your eyes.
But even with mail call, the experience isn't quite over yet.
My grandfather he said to me on the way home, and I'll never forget what he said to me, I never thought people cared about what we did back then. And, really brought me, tear to my eye when he said that, just to say how much that day meant to him and, meant to me as well.
I was so honored. I can't tell you. I can't describe to you all the complicated emotions you feel.
My dad, like a lot of members of his generation, are very modest about their service. It's something that Dad did not talk about much while growing up.
Well, I think what happens is I think you can't really tell your story unless you're telling it to somebody who actually experienced what you experienced. And I think a lot of them kept that locked away for a long time.
And on the airplane, we all spoke with one another and a little bit about where were you? Were you in the Navy, Army, Marines, Air Force, or whatever? What did you do? Every one of the veterans are so interested in what other veterans did. I was in the Navy and I was on a landing craft, one of the most important subjects of my life. And they said, oh, great. I was one of the guys that climbed down the rope and went into your boat. I said, well, maybe I carried you. And those are the types of people you meet, and those are the subjects you talk about.
After an honor flight, these guys have changed. For whatever time they have left, they feel better about themselves. They feel better about their contribution to society. They feel better about their sacrifice.
I was just so emotional, like, it's hard to talk about it. I couldn't believe that anyone would even think of the war 70 years later. I said, well, why would anybody come out to see a bunch of old, dilapidated veterans? I never dreamed that anyone would be interested. And to see the outpouring of love, even from children.
He still talks about it. I mean, that was a couple months ago now, and he still talks about, going down there and seeing all the sights in D.C. and still saying if it wasn't for the honor flight, I'd have never seen all this stuff. And I think that's a real testament to what the people at the honor flight are really trying to do.
Afterwards, it took me several days to really kind of settle down and say, how did I get to do something this special? And came down to basically, I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'd like to be involved and be a volunteer.
It made me just so proud and so humbled and honored to be a tiny little part that I have to go again. It's a privilege. That's how I looked at it. It was a privilege to be with them.
It's a great thrill to be part of it. I really believe that these young kids that put this together, they deserve a lot of appreciation too, because, like you see a lot of them today, that's all right, forget about it, These are kids that said, we've got to do something to tell our families and our grandparents and uncles and aunts that we weren't there, but we appreciate what you've done.
The celebration of the World War II veterans goes on long after the honor flight is over. The community reaches out to them and demonstrates its appreciation for all veterans of World War II. The Rockland Boulders of the Canadian American Independent Baseball League held a special night for Hudson Valley Honor Flight. The celebratory night also acknowledged the league's oldest living player, Ken March, a Hudson Valley Honor Flight veteran. They invited him to the ballpark, along with other World War II veterans. On that night, World War II veterans saw how much their service meant to communities in the Hudson Valley.
I don't think the generation now has any idea what it would mean to give up their cell phone or their iPod for a day, no less 3 or 4 years in the service. Kids could learn a lot from these guys.
I love the fact that my son has met Pearl Harbor survivors, that he's met paratroopers, any World War II veteran. He's got history under him. You talk about bridging the gap, well, our kids are what's going to bridge that gap.
The thing out of the honor flight that I got the most out of was at the airports and seeing these little kids, teenagers. Somebody has told them what went on.
The best way to learn something is to experience it firsthand. By having someone that was there, you're not going to read this in the books, or someone that was with Patton. The Battle of the Bulge, the bloodiest battle ever fought. Most people don't know that.
I think that veteran can tell about self-sacrifice and living for a purpose. I think that veteran can talk about the importance of love of country, of pride in country, of what it means to stand up together, to work towards a particular goal.
We've done a little bit visiting with the kids at school too, and I think it's opened a lot of their eyes and giving them an understanding, and also giving the kids a curiosity to maybe check out, maybe my grandfather did something like this, maybe my dad did something like this. Giving them the tools maybe to dig a little bit and find out more what it was like in those times.
The real impact and the impression that it'll have on them is coming from a live human being. That it's not about movies or what they read in the book, it's about listening to somebody actually tell them about the experiences that they had and the reasons why they did it.
Well, I think they're afraid of each other. I think the veterans are afraid of these young kids, and I think they've realized, well, they are good, they do have values, they are smart, they can ask good questions. I think the kids realize that these fellas are cool as well.
I want to thank everyone for coming. Appreciate that very much. Thank you for your dedicated service to our country and for sharing your experiences with my students here today. These students have taken a course in military history, and the focus of the course was on the French and Indian War and the American Revolution.
A little before my time.
A little bit before, but they've studied the material culture of a soldier and a little bit of the life of our first veterans, and it'll be nice to cross that bridge from learning about those veterans and their experiences, and then relating that to some of the experiences that you fine gentlemen had.
All my growing years, I experienced the Depression along with everyone else, and we had hardly anything of any means to talk about, but everybody was in the same boat, so we didn't know what we were missing.
We had nothing to work with. We had to create and do with very little.
We had like 2 changes of clothes, 1 pair of shoes, 1 of everything, and you had to mend and make do and get along on very little.
Worked in the gas station. Gasoline was 5 gallons for $1.
Drove a team of horses with a plow and a rake when I was 5. I learned to drive a Model T Ford when I was 6. And it was a wonderful time.
In those days, things were a little different. You had no choice. As soon as you became 18, you went into the service whether you liked it or not. If you walked down the street and you looked like you were military age, people actually used to come up to you and say, "Why aren't you in the service?"
A lot of people in our generation don't actually appreciate it as much as some people do, but
I'm completely grateful for them. Like, without them, we'd be all speaking German right now. We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now.
It's a tremendous opportunity for my kids to see living history. When you hear it from the mouth of a person in front of you and you listen to their experiences, that's the things that the kids are going to remember.
Come the war, I joined the service in July 2, 1942.
I was in the Army Air Corps. I went in 1942. I come out in 45.
I was in high school, same as you guys, and I was drafted and went into service at that time.
Going to enlist. So I said, well, I guess I'll go to the Navy. I went to the Navy. And I walked in there with my glasses on. Guy says, what do you want? I said, I'm going to enlist. He says, you've got glasses, we can't take you. You won't be able to see good enough.
I learned discipline. When you're in the military, you're on your own. If you don't pick it up, nobody else will.
I went to the Coast Guard, same story. I went to the Air Force, same story. The one guy says to me, why don't you go down to the Army, they'll take you. I said, well, if the Army wants me, they can draft me. And they did. And I ended up in the Air Force anyway.
Basic training went 16 weeks. They made a soldier out of me there. And what I was thinking was, you know, what comes next?
We slept on the ground. We rolled in bed. You rolled out your thing and you climbed in there and went to sleep. Rattlesnakes in the desert out there in California was making maneuvers. Some of them rattlesnakes would come right up in your thing there. Yeah, you had to be careful where you slept.
What time did you get up?
Oh, 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that sergeant would come down and hit you with a stick in the bed. Yeah.
Why did you have to get up at 4 in the morning?
I don't know. They give me. That was basic training, see? We're sleeping in British, what they call billets. Quonset huts? Did you sleep in Quonset huts? Quonset hut, that's the name of it. Right. We were sleeping in billets in Quonset huts. And for bedding, or a mattress, was a cover stuffed with straw. That's what we slept on.
This is a great opportunity for them to learn from what is the greatest generation. I think as a social studies teacher, one of the problems I have is conveying to the kids the period of time that these guys lived through. So, I mean, in fact, their history. So they can give them a better glimpse into what the period was like than any textbook could, or any film could, or any teacher could.
One of the things that we urged was that they actually go home and talk to their grandfather, talk to their father, talk to their great-grandfather, because for many of them, that's exactly what it was a great-grandfather, if he's still around, to make sure that, you know, you hear what he did.
Well, I just watched veterans explain their past and what they went through World War II. It's so fascinating.
It really touched my heart based on how I heard their stories and their challenges. We recently went to Washington, D.C. as a class trip, and I was there for 2 days, and I missed my family terribly. But 2, 3, 4, years? That's insane.
I'm pretty grateful of what they did in World War II. Thank them for that.
I saw awe, I saw respect, and I saw this little switch that happened that makes this now real to them.
I liked the Navy because it got me out of Brooklyn. Outside of the seasickness, I threw up in all 7 oceans in the world, but I enjoyed it. I really had a good time, and you see some things which are not very pleasant, but that's part of war. War is not a very pleasant game.
I was an immigrant to this country. And I felt I owed this country the mere fact that I was still alive.
The worst part about me, seeing the people that you trained with, people that you jumped with, laying dead alongside of you and killing other people.
We went into Holland with 215 men in I Company. We came out of Holland 68 days later with 14 men. But some of the fellows they need all the help they can get because they can't get over that feeling of what they saw, what they were in, what they did. And let me tell you something else. You may not like to hear this, but in war, terrible things happen that the average person would never consider doing if there was no war.
I actually was really surprised about how not destroyed mentally they were about it. I realized when we read about it in the books and they talk about how gruesome it was, it obviously does seem gruesome as they were saying, but they were actually well adjusted, and I was really surprised of how, if I would have seen them in a street, I would never have guessed that they would have gone through such horrors and experienced extreme things.
As you guys are going through all these countries, when you're going through the countries to get to the next front or wherever, what was the reaction of the people that lived there? As you're going through, having you guys there.
They treat us like heroes. Yeah, we were liberators back then.
See, when we took Germany over, the German people were good to us.
Yeah.
They were good because we treated them good.
The French people, they would kiss you. They were happy to see us.
They only wanted cigarettes.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. Half the stuff I learned today I never really knew about. All the experiences that they explained just were mind-blowing.
These guys are tough men. They went through Great Depression, and they're still standing here today, and they're glad to tell us all about it.
Our experience with the World War II veterans was amazing. I found out who my new role models are, and they taught us a lot and things that I'll never forget.
I would say thank you for their service and for all the stories they told us, because when we're in school we don't really get told all of the history behind it. I learned a lot more here than I did there because they have more experiences that we don't usually hear in class.
When the hostilities were over, everyone went back to work like nothing had happened. My brother-in-law, who saw kamikazes, attacks, he came back and it was like he went away on a vacation, came back. No referral to what happened. Let's get back to work. That's tremendous attitude. The American people are just wonderful people, really.
We have reached a point now, the year 2014, where us guys are very few of us left. We're I suppose now, a precious commodity. And therefore, we are beginning to shine.
And that honor flight, I really felt, they made me feel, the group that was there made me feel, I'm home. They have greeted me home. It was just a wonderful experience.
They called us the greatest generation, but I think you got the greatest generation right here in front of you.
Yeah, it was very inspirational the way they told us about how they experienced life back then.
One message is to do the best you can do.
That's right.
And don't be afraid to fail, because we've all done that, and it's something that will always be with us.
This gave us a new perspective on the war, because firsthand, the teachers don't really explain how the lives were of the veterans.
No one person can do it all, but each one can do his little bit. And all those little bits add up to everything you need. But each one of you can contribute very, very importantly.
Oh, it was a phenomenal experience getting to know the veterans. They were very nice people, and what they went through and their struggle with the war, and the fact that they had the will to survive and the courage because of them. That's why we're here today in such a happy place, and I'm grateful for that, so thank you.
We spoke to 3 pieces of history basically, and it was a very great experience because we got to talk to them and understand what they went through and how hard it was, and understand the horrors firsthand by them, and it was really interesting.
As an adult, as an educator, you almost think, oh, they don't get it yet. They're too young for this. But when you listen to the questions, and when I saw the tears in their eyes when the gentlemen were answering their questions, I really felt like they got it, that they are now responsible for carrying on this legacy. And it's something that I believe they will do. They're taking it seriously.
They started to understand us more, and we started to understand them, and it was a really great experience.
It was just amazing how they got to bring all the vets in. Like, it's just something that doesn't happen. I know there's not a lot of these guys left, and it was just a real pleasure getting to sit with them and talk with them.
I learned how they grew up and how life was different back then than it is now.
We're probably the last generation who could get this opportunity, so it was really cool.
I take it as a really good honor because we might be the last generation who'll be able to experience something like this.
I found this program really educational and very enthusiastic because I've learned things I never knew before.
My kids won't be able to experience what I experienced. They won't be able to because eventually everyone passes on, and it's because I actually met them, I have to pass on the story to my kids, what it was like and how intense it was.
Well, I want to thank all you young people there. It's nice sitting at the table with young kids, really. And you two old guys on there, stop smiling. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here, and I want to, it's nice to come. It wasn't nice, fellas, to be here and to talk to a few of the young kids and see how we could make the world better for them. We did.
It's such an honor to meet them, and it was really interesting.
Just witnessed a piece of history, even though my grandfather served in the same exact war of those three men. He told me a lot of stories that are similar to theirs, and you just can't stop learning what happened in the past.
Even though we were in different time periods, we had some connections. I think it was really great, an experience that everyone should have.
And keep picking yourself up and brushing yourself off and starting over again. You never know how many times in your life you're going to have to do that. Each one of you can make a difference in this world, and I wish you good luck in doing that. Save us now.
I know when I was in school, we had world history, and we learned about the wars. And I think some of these children are amazed themselves. And it's only a few that we've touched so far. It will bring the history that's so needed to the American public.
They're just regular guys that did a job for our country. And that's what I think blew me away, is that there's literally heroes. I was in the midst of heroes, but you wouldn't have known it.
It opened my eyes to people that I thought were ordinary, were anything but. They were actually extraordinary. And to think that as a young man at 18, 19 years old, some younger, some a little bit older, had accomplished some of those feats that actually were written in those commendations was eye-opening for me. And like I said, never looked at those people the same way ever again.
This is a great group of people that know, they're smart enough to know that we have to take it to the next level, to expand into another airport and to serve more veterans on bigger planes and more of a individual, unique experience. We had to get more organized, to get our nonprofit status, do some accounting things. The larger you get, you have to focus that way, or you're not going to be able to attract the money from donors and command the respect of the business community in order to receive that money.
We're so fortunate to have the support that we did from our inaugural flight, and that's continued. I mean, Newmark has stepped up again and generously donated for our 2015 flights out of Westchester. And, ShopRite continues to sponsor us in 2015. So we've got the backing.
I don't think honor flights can exist without corporate support. They're the ones that have the financial means to be able to do it. I don't think that, in our case, in Hudson Valley Honor Flight, if it wasn't for ShopRite, we would not be able to have been able to even get the first flight off. It was too much money had to be raised. You couldn't do that door to door or bake sales or the little local kind of stuff.
It's all about outreach, and we just need to make sure we get every World War II veteran that we can onto the flight, and I think that the more outreach we do, the more people that get involved, the the more veterans we'll be able to take to DC. And there are so many more out there, so I think just really getting the word out about what we're doing, getting schools involved, I think that's such a big part of this, and just really spreading the word.
When they see a group of volunteers, especially young people, especially students in high schools and grade schools, getting involved in the honor flight, going out of their way to honor them, I think for at least a moment they realized that their sacrifices weren't made for nothing.
To be able to take these guys down so that they all would have the opportunity to get down to see their memorial, so they could go for themselves, they could go for the brothers and sisters that paid the ultimate sacrifice.
Our biggest challenge is time. We're running out of it. These guys, if their life was a symphony, we'd be in the last chorus. You know, for some of them, we're in the last few notes. And so we're racing against the clock. And we need to move to serve as many veterans as we possibly can. Because in a few years, for World War II veterans, they'll be gone.
You can't come anywhere near this program without being drawn into it in some way. And I'm talking about anybody and everybody, people involved in the Honor Flight Committee, the bike riders that escort us, the people at the airport. But I mean, even passengers at the airport who don't even know that they're walking into an honor flight situation, they become drawn into it.
I think for at least a moment they realized that their sacrifices weren't made for nothing, that all they sacrificed during the war, the lives that were lost, it meant something to the people then, but it means something to the people now. And what we try to do is reiterate the message that we will not let your memories fade. We will not let future generations, my 6-week-old daughter, we won't let them forget just what our World War II veterans meant to us. And the fact that we're able to really live, one-on-one, honor these heroes is something that I plan to pass down to my kids and my grandkids, and hopefully they can pass down to their children as well.
Whatever time they have left, to let them know how revered they are, how honored they are by people throughout this region, throughout this state, throughout this country. And I don't think they get that until they've been on an honor flight.
Soon, all the World War II veterans will be lost to the ages. When that time comes, Hudson Valley Honor Flight will honor those who served in Korea, Vietnam, and in the Gulf. But until then, they will seek to bring every veteran who served in World War II to Washington. What they have also been able to do is give a real vision of history to young people who would never have the opportunity to learn firsthand about World War II. That experience is priceless, both for the students and the veterans. By breaking down the walls of time, even for a little while, the veterans and the school kids were able to look at each other and see each other from a new perspective and learn what it's like to be in each other's shoes. Time certainly won't allow this to happen much longer, but these veterans and these school kids got to meet each other halfway on the Generation Bridge.